I'm not the house of cards that falls down easily. I'm strong enough to handle what you throw at me.
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I'm your host, Kristin and Walker. Just what are we going to discuss? The intimacy that is mental health. Let's continue to make it as comfortable as discussing brain health or heart health. This show has been on the air for several years and we have amazing co-hosts. And then we created a network of podcasters on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com, a place where every possible facet of mental well-being can be talked about openly. My show, after several hundred interviews, the format is this: intimate, deep, funny, touching, sometimes uncomfortable, but always vulnerable conversations with interesting people. The goal is to have you, our listening family, many of you who have become my good friends, feel as though you are listening in on private conversations. Thank you for tuning in and becoming part of this amazing journey with me, and now with our network of podcasters. Just knowing this podcast might be helping any of you realize you are not alone on this journey called being a human being makes doing this podcast worth every second.
After all we promised, we'd be cordial.
Hi everyone, Kristin here. We've had a bit of a hiatus on our Women Who Lead show because these two women, me, Kristin Walker, and Catherine Greer-Limpo, my co-host, we've been busy during this coronavirus, working and so on. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about women leadership during the coronavirus. I know everyone's kind of sick of hearing about it, but this is a very different show. We're not going to talk about stats and paranoia and lack of enough, care. We're just going to literally talk about female leadership through this. It applies to times during a pandemic and not. The date today is May 30th of 2020, just so you know where we're at in the timeline of COVID-19. And Catherine, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, Kristin, I'm so glad to be able to talk to you. And we have been busy, haven't we? We have.
Tell me about and our listeners about your, what's been going on with you through all this.
Sure. It's been a journey for sure. And I know that my story is exemplary of many, many other stories out there right now. I do have to say that I am extremely privileged, and I just want to lay that out there. I have the ability to work from home.
Right.
And I have the ability to tuck into my house and to be safe and comfortable and continue to do my job and lead my organization in the way that I need to. And that's not the same as what other people have. And I'm very conscious of that. So I do want to preface, my experience with saying that I know that I'm one of the fortunate ones who has the ability to go inside, and the impact to me has been minimal relative to the literally millions of people in our country who are applying for unemployment right now. It is just staggering.
Do you feel kind of some survivor's guilt about that?
I do, not in the sense that folks specifically in my company have lost their jobs, of course, but I do feel very sensitive to the fact that the service industry disappeared. I have a lot of people that I interact with every day who are, critically affected by this. And it saddens me. It really, really does. I don't know if I would label it as survivor's guilt specifically,
right?
But it definitely makes me want to look around and see where I can create effect.
Absolutely.
So whether it's, ordering it sounds so stupid, but ordering a box of pastries from the local bakery that's taking orders on Monday and delivering on Saturday, it's keeping them going. It's making sure that when I have the opportunity to, donate to a food bank or to, another effort that's making sure that someone who needs something to eat is getting it, that I'm taking that opportunity to, donating to things that I didn't even know existed, because I feel compelled to make sure that these things are maintaining some semblance of survival through all this. And we don't know what it's going to look like on the other side. Things are the same right now, but things are very different as well. So what about you? I mean, how would you characterize how you're feeling? I'm curious.
I did have some guilt at the fact that I work from home too. And then I said, okay, that feel it and then move on. There are people that I'm supporting financially that have lost their jobs and they have to go find a new one, and others that are, just on hold. And so I've been doing that. And also I've had a financial impact as well, because things that were lined up to get done, that people would have to pay for, they are holding on to their funds, and wisely so. So
right.
It's been interesting, but you kind of look at how you structure your life, and I feel, really grateful that I chose to go down this journey of living a very, very minimalist experience. So I can ride through times like this. I had no idea how much what I was doing would have an impact in a good way on the future, because none of us knew this was coming. So,
right.
Many experts knew it was coming, but they didn't have any idea the kind of impact it would have. So I feel grateful. I just mostly feel really, really grateful and inspired.
Yes.
We've got some first responders on this network that are just unbelievable, the things they're doing. So for me, it's hard not to cry several times a day. It just awe of, of these people. I'm like, my God, and also just so much anger,
yes,
and powerlessness, feeling powerless, and then working myself back into, okay, don't live there because of the things that are going on in our world regarding race, regarding just the things that I don't believe in, like, this fight about wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, I think is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But, and me going, okay, I've got to navigate this network, and not everybody believes like how I do. This is about mental health. So everybody, regardless of what you believe, can have, and how you live your life, can have a mental health challenge. So how do I be me and express my beliefs without alienating other people on the network and other listeners? So there's a lot of that. And I think that goes right into what we're talking about today with leadership.
Yeah, exactly. So just to kind of do a very quick trace of how this has impacted my life. And again, it's a similar story to others. We were told as a company to work from home starting on March 16th. It was around the same day that Portland Public Schools, I live in Portland, Oregon, sent the students home to at least continue through the end of April from a home environment where they could be safe. We at work just completed week 11 of working from home. It's likely that we will not begin a transition back into our office here just due to the state of Oregon and certain orders to be in place until around September. My son is now completing school from home, so their school year is now until June 10th. And they did say around the beginning of April that we would continue to be home educating through that time, and that we wouldn't be going back to physical school buildings. So what that actually looks like in Portland for September, I believe it's still a TBD. I haven't seen any news or read any emails from the district saying it's going to be different. So I think that this is a time of ambiguity, and I don't know about, well, I texted you at the beginning of this because I was really struggling with the ambiguity. And I think that it was more out of fear, but it was your response to me, which was, I really feel like I'm born for this,
Is that what I wrote?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Oh boy.
And well, but I hear that, you know, and when I look around and I see in particular how there are females leading through this crisis,
Right.
it kind of made me stop and go, okay, wait a minute, check your fear. You know, you are about as safe as you possibly can be right now. So let's look at what we can do. Let's look at what we can affect. And let's look and draw inspiration from the women around us who we really think are nailing it in leading through this, you
Right.
know?
Right. Give us some examples.
All right. So some of the examples, I'm referencing a CNN article here that was written by Lita Hong Fincher. And she is an extremely opinionated woman, just like all of us, right, who are out there telling the truth. She was the author of scathing sort of opinionist article called Betraying Big Brother, the Feminist Awakening in China, that really spoke to what's happening now in China, the rise of the female voice, which of course was much more muted than it was in the US at any point in time. But the article is by her, and I almost felt like there was a disclaimer on the article because of that. So, you know, but the fact is, there are women leaders globally who are leading strategically through this crisis. And what they don't bring to the table is the anti-science skeptical view that's reflected in many of the more conservative leaders out there in the world today.
Yeah, I want to say this because this is what strikes me, and I get it that we still female leadership still does not have the prominence it should in our media and everywhere else. However, women are constantly told that we're too emotional to lead, that we get hysterical, you know, all those things, and yet every female leader that I have sought out and read the things that they've written, the interviews they've done. I mean, maybe not every one of them, but the ones I've seen have been calm, have been stating actual facts, not, fake, that whatever we're misled into thinking is fake and real and whatever. They've been passionate, but measured. And it's the men that are out there screaming their damn heads off and fighting. I think that that's quite telling.
Yep. I think it is too. And it actually, ties directly into two books that were released lately. So one by Jen Hatmaker and the other by Glennon Doyle. So if our typical response as females is to be emotional, why is that not today perceived as outrage?
Yeah.
We are simply passionate about what we believe in. That's not getting overly emotional or irrational about something. If anything, it's taking our rational views to a heightened level and demanding action. And that's really what these women did, I think.
I wonder if when I say I was born for this, I say that from multiple perspectives that I'll get into in a bit, but I wonder if, that's a global statement about women. We've been clamped down for so long, and we've had to figure out how to get our voice out there in whatever way it's going to be heard. So we're used to having to be calm, be whatever it is that's going to get people to listen and deal with the repression of our voice as we're doing it. So I feel like women in general were born for this kind of a crisis.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I got to go back to something I was saying before we even started. And that is, how about all of the new content that you are publishing through Mental Health News Radio in the last 2 months relative to what's going on?
Oh, it's insane. We created a page for coronavirus at the end of, sort of the third week of March, just to cover the shows where people are talking about across the network. And I finally turned off the auto feed, or it automatically would grab anything that mentioned it and put those shows on a specific page. And I had to turn it off because every show is about this now, because now it is part of our our society. If I continue to do that, that page is going to be longer than I'll get out. Now I've got to figure out what to do with it because I can't just putting every show on there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So the countries that are led by women who have really fallen into the spotlight of late, although I'm not going to say that they've fallen into the spotlight, because there seems to be this desire to sort of mute the success that these women have had in managing through this crisis. And I think a lot of that has to do with the way that the US has dealt with it, frankly. We have had a lack of leadership, and I'm not afraid to say that.
Good.
So if we look at Taiwan, I'm just going to list the countries off: Taiwan, Germany, New Zealand, Finland, Iceland, Norway, St. Martin, all women-led countries, and all with very specific calculated responses that were focused on protecting their citizens, universal testing, or at least a drive toward the achievement of universal testing for their populations, and a very strong yet empathetic message to the population that said, stop moving, stay where you are, and we'll be healthy and safe and get through this together. And every one of those countries were successful in doing so. Now, we're not on the other side of this by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
However, when it comes to cases that were active, treatment and recovery and mitigation of death, these countries all have some of the lowest death rates in the world relative to the percentage of infected with the coronavirus.
Yep. I had to put the on that because
Yeah.
Yep. It's staggering. It's staggering how well they are doing and continue to do and have done.
Yeah. I wanted to quote the leader of St. Martin's, who just simply told her population to stop moving. And she said, if you don't have bread, eat crackers. If you don't have the type of crackers that you like in your house, eat cereal. If you don't have cereal, eat oats. I want to deal with this emphatically and empathically and tell you to simply stop moving for 2 weeks.
I know. None of this, just cuckoo cuckoo that is going on in the United States and other countries that are led by men. I just,
Yeah.
And
so
they get a medal just because of being able to do this with all of this system noise going on around them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Staying focused on the long-term success and optimal outcome.
Their people, not their ego, not their political agenda, not their financial agenda, even though, of course, they're concerned about that for their citizens, but not their own financial agenda, literally for their people. Yeah,
that's right. Much of this really required swift action too. And if we think about the New Zealand Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, she was the same one who in 3 days banned semi-automatic weapons from her country just this last year when there was a mass shooting at a mosque in New Zealand.
Yep.
And she took very similar swift action in response to this virus and announced a 4-week lockdown of her country on March 23rd and required everyone to stay home. She closed the borders to foreign visitors on the 19th of March, even before her country was locked down. And she's carried out widespread testing and has one of the lowest death rates of the coronavirus globally. So I look at these women and I look at the concise, empathic actions that they've taken, and I'm inspired. I'm inspired at the way not only they've administered, very strategic, very pointed actions that were executed, but they've also done it in such a way that, to your point earlier, it's not hysterical. It's an appropriate response to the current crisis that they're facing. And I'm just...
I think being born for this too is also to do with the fact that we are the primary parent often, and we also work. So we juggle many, many, many things, and we've had to learn how to juggle them well. So this is definitely something where you have to be able to juggle many things, many unknowns, the ultimate unknown, which is what in the heck is this virus and how are we going to stop it? So in some of those ways, we've been taught and shaped and molded into being able to handle this kind of a crisis for decades, maybe centuries.
I agree with you. There are a couple articles that I want to tie into this that I think really reinforce that. So one is from Forbes and the other is from Harvard Business Review. And it really talks about the difference between leading through a crisis or managing response. And that's two different things. Managing response is trying to identify what the next action is, whereas leading is really taking the long-term view and saying, what incremental steps do we need to take in order to ultimately achieve our goal? And it was interesting to me reading both of these articles that so many of the women that I work with and really admire in terms of their leadership skills just naturally embody these kind of human factors that it takes to manage through stuff like this. So not forgetting how people feel is one of them, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And, just back to women country leaders, the Prime Minister of Norway, you know this because we were talking about this earlier, had a kids only coronavirus briefing.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
And
it's hard to even talk about because it's so touching.
It is. And you know what? I can't think, and I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, any man that's listening to this, but I can't think of one man that would stop what he was doing and take the time to really empathically address the children.
Yep.
And as a mom, the fact that she did that kills me. You know, it was a condensed message. It allowed the kids to express their fears and brought it down to a human level. And really, that's what we need right now.
Absolutely. We don't need all of this needless, senseless drama that's going on everywhere. And I mean, I get so many emails, text messages, carrier pigeons showing up to from my friends and colleagues in other countries saying, oh, we feel so sorry for Americans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough time here right now.
Yeah. And again, the women that I know that are in leadership positions are just owning it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even in our U.S. manufacturers, Mary Barra of GM, oh my gosh, the swift conversion of so many of her manufacturing plants to PPE and respirator manufacturing.
Yep.
And giving the plants a thumbs up in the middle of it. You know, she was not shying away. She was not going and hiding in her office. She was out there in the middle of it,
yep,
leading through it. And I just found that incredibly inspirational.
Yeah, it seems like the women are the adults running around just handling stuff and without much fanfare, because what's important is handling stuff.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and I and from that my very microscopic mode in that with the women that you're talking about, I felt like that too. Like, okay, just keep going. What do I got to do next? How can I highlight this next? And dealing with my own anger and fear and all the stuff that we have to deal with and concern, in my days of, I've just had it. I mean, I just had another 2 days this week where everything that's going on right now regarding race just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was saying to myself, why am I so tired? I was feeling so good. I've been walking, 2-3 miles a day. I've been feeling a lot more energy, because the weight of the world emotionally can definitely take its toll on me too. And I just got hit so hard, but part of it is also going, okay, there is a reason why you're upset. So just honor that and get some extra sleep.
Right. Yep. Yeah. There's a wonderful activist group that I follow. Actually, it's a woman that I follow on Instagram called the Nap Ministry. And she is an activist. She's beautifully outspoken, and talks about rest constantly as a healing force. I really appreciate her message. Sometimes it does take the acknowledgement of how exhausted we are to understand that we need to rest and gather our strength and go and actually do something about it,
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can't, that's what I have to tell myself. And I've been meditating every day and doing things that I wouldn't normally do that are now becoming regular habits on the other side of whenever there is another side of what we're going through. But it's been really good to just say, okay, you know what? Stop. Like, get off your computer, get off your phone, go to bed, and nothing, the weight of the world is not yours to go and handle right now. Go take care of yourself, and it'll look completely different when you wake up. And to be able to do that in the midst of all of this stuff going on is, that's a mighty thing to do, especially the years where I literally believed that, if I wasn't on top of everything at every moment, the world was going to fall apart. That I had my 30s were a lot about that.
Mm-hmm. Right. But, I think rest is taking on a different form right now. Right. So I think about how we are at home right now, or those of us who have the privilege of being home are home right now. And for me, and this is just me personally, not only is it a time for introspection and looking for things that I need to change in myself, but it's also kind of following along the lines of, Glennon Doyle's book and Jen Hatmaker's book, and for sure, Abby Wambach's Wolf Pack. What is my strength that I need to tap into? Because the way things are today are not satisfactory. And so the rest that I do right now needs to be deliberate. It needs to be gathering strength in order to channel that outrage, or channel that passion, or channel that next level of effort. Because if there is not a time that requires our effort, it is now.
Right.
I mean, this is just crazy. With the lack of leadership of our overall country, when we have so many good examples of what leadership looks like around us, I really think this is a call to action,
Absolutely.
And even with I don't even want to call it a racial issue or racial issues that are going on in our country, because the fact is our country is not whole.
Yeah.
And similar to lack of same-sex marriage in the past, we shouldn't be celebrating the fact that it was finally allowed and legalized. We should be outraged that it wasn't okay to begin with.
Yes.
And I don't feel that our country can be anywhere close to whole if there are broken parts.
Agreed. I think too, there's so much the powerlessness that people feel, and the continuation of labeling things. It's another way to just run around like a hamster on a hamster wheel going absolutely nowhere.
Yep.
It doesn't get anything done. It, okay, some horror show happens yet again. People get outraged. They protest. There are peaceful protests, and then there are horrific, violent protests, and labels are thrown around yet again. And the focus is on this drama that's going on. And all of that takes away from digging in and doing what we need to do to get through this time.
Yeah, I totally agree. We can't manage each little issue independently when it's the whole.
Exactly.
Yeah. Woo.
No, that's a lot. I feel like the solution for me so far has been to just, and why I feel good about, why I said I was born for this. I have been through some horrible freaking trauma. Like no one's gonna know, I don't see anyone really trying to deny that or saying you really haven't been through anything as if it's a contest. It's
right.
But I have been, and I've persevered and done the work and continue to do the work to, get through that in all the different ways that it shows up over the length of your lifetime. So having mental health, mental illness, and living with that, all of those things. So something like a pandemic comes along, and I have a toolbox that's really chock full of great stuff that I've used throughout my life. And I was able to go in there and grab those tools and go, I didn't know if I would ever use this one, but I'm going to use it today,
Yep. Yeah.
And it worked, so I've been the calmest I've ever been. The added bonus for me during this is because I'm allowing myself to rest, and because I'm meditating and really going within and being very purposeful about the quiet, to yet walk out again another moment into the unquiet, the wildly unquiet. It's further sharpened my sword. It's, okay. I get it. I get the whole thing about, you can't, if you're a highly empathic person, an empath, you finally figure out, yeah. The giving to yourself first is necessary because of what it does for you and your ability as a natural giver to give to everybody else. I heard that for years, and this has made me, I don't just hear it, I know in my bones what that means now.
Right. And you know what, Kristin, it's really being able to connect strategy with action in your own life that allows that. And I think that women have a very unique ability, and I'm not man bashing. I'm talking about women. I'm talking to my sisters right now. Right. And I'm saying that we have a very unique ability to take an umbrella view. Harvard Business Review would call it meta leadership. We can rise above and take a broad, holistic view of both challenges and opportunities and understand what needs to be done in the short term to achieve what needs to happen in the long term.
Yep.
It's the gift of multitasking, right?
Absolutely. It's the gift of me being 20 years old and having the stomach flu and nursing a child at the same time, and haven't had a shower in 3 days, and taking care of a house and a husband, and having to throw up and breastfeed at the same time while also getting a shower. I mean, we're talking about that kind of, multitasking. We're talking about women who are in traumatic situations in countries where their physical safety, as well as every other kind of aspect of their being, is in danger every moment. And yet they have to still take care of their children, their home, their job, whatever it is. It's that kind of multitasking. It's the kind where you just do it because you've had to for so long that it becomes your natural instinct to live that way.
Right. And it's the ability to tap into all of that chaos and figure out what the right next step is.
Absolutely.
And I
Well
think
going, I don't know what the right next step is, but I'm going to take a step.
Yep. And that's tapping into our intuition that we should have been trusting all along.
Exactly. I actually had a moment the other day where something happened and I felt awful. It was a situation with a person. I did not feel good about it. I didn't listen. I did the, oh, it's not them, it must be me thing for about maybe 4 hours, which is the shortest length of time that I think I've ever done that kind of questioning. And then I actually, for the first time in my entire life, sat back and said, you know what, Kristin, I honor your gut. I honor your instincts. You knew this was wrong. You were right. And I listen and hear you. That's the first time I've ever actually said that to myself. And I'm 50 years old.
I love it. Good. It's about damn time.
And I think that the leadership that we're seeing from women, they're doing that too. I know because they've told me, but it's just, you have to throw some things out into the land of amorphousness. I just made up a word, but you know what I'm saying?
I do.
Because that's the land of your instinct.
Yeah. And, if we just think about, some of the things that lend to kind of taking care of all of the stuff around us, right? Whether it's in crisis or in health when everything's going well. It's understanding what those around us respond to, right? Or even ourselves.
Right.
Understanding how to talk to those folks. Again, even ourselves. And then it's understanding and knowing what the response will be and how to manage that response. So I think if we even apply that to us, it's the reinforcement of trusting our intuition over and over and over again.
An iron forged in fire. I mean, I'm telling you, it is. I thought this was interesting because I had a week where I was invited to be on all of these shows to give my commentary, and I was like, okay, I hope I got something to give you, and I don't know if my commentary is any good right now, but they were all done by men and they all were baiting me into answering questions, baiting me by saying things like, what do you think of how our civil liberties are being trampled by making us wear a mask or whatever it was? So they're not even a fair question.
Oh, goodness.
And I do play it like, okay, I got to answer this and I'm not playing it. That's my natural way to be anyway. But I finally just said, you know what? I can't answer that question. You're going to need to rephrase it. And when they wouldn't, or they would stumble through rephrasing it, I would say, here's how I can answer. Here's the question that you'd need to ask in order for me to give you a good answer. And then I was really proud of myself for doing that, but it was exhausting. And I came and sat down in my living room and I looked at my partner, my ex-husband, and I said, I don't understand why all of these men want to constantly be in debate about things.
Right.
And
yeah.
My ex-husband looked at me and he goes, well, maybe it's because there aren't any sports things going on, because they argue about, the throw or the pass or the whatever, and that's not happening. And they got to have something to debate about because that's what men do. And I looked at him and I thought, that is the most profound damn thing I've heard about.
That's interesting. I guess I'd never really thought about it that way. But, I think about conversations with my dad, right? He tries to bait me into political discussions. I'm just not going to go there, But is it for the fun of the argument? I don't I don't know.
I think it is.
I,
Men like to debate. They like to throw their chest out and I mean, there are a rare few men that don't do that. My ex is one of them. He used to do that all the time. And God, it was exhausting. And I was always the one that would drop the rope. Okay, you win this game. Because I just dropped the rope and I don't care about a winner or a loser here. I'm done. And that dropping the rope, which many people would see as failure at the time that it was happening, now I see that as, oh, that was pretty good strength building for me.
right. Yeah. It's like, okay, here's my boundary. I'm going to let go of the rope now.
And there's so many ways in what we're going through right now where I have had to do that in order to take care of myself. And I'm glad that I know how to do it without it being some kind of ego wound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I think that in times of crisis, there's going to be flare-ups of strong opinion or passion or what have you, even if the position isn't founded in logic or reason. And I think that it's super easy for us right now to get caught up in that. And that's where I think the boundaries right now and our own willingness to either engage in a conversation or listen to something or what have you really need to be checked and reinforced, because those are the things that are, not only going to protect us, but they're going to further allow us to reflect and rest in our own strengths and feel stronger about our own opinions. I was thinking about Forbes article that I read. I quote so many things, don't I? It's coronavirus leading through a crisis by this guy, David Michael. So I appreciate his perspective on some of this stuff. But it's talking about the fact that sometimes in crisis, we lose sight of even what the issue is.
Yes.
Because the focus is so much on defensiveness, denial. In the case of coronavirus, it's inter-science in the face of changing facts, right? So we can't even agree on really what the facts are, what the cause is, or how it spread, or any of this kind of stuff. And that leads to, this blaming others. Uncertainty is very, very uncomfortable. So how do we come back to ourselves and say, okay, even in this fluidity, I'm going to back away from the defensiveness. I'm going to back away from fixed mindsets or behaviors and allow myself the space to be fluid, because it's in that fluidity that I'm not only going to be protected, but I'm going to find my strength. And I really think that that's important.
Absolutely. And in that vein of just staying away from nonsense, because there are things that are just more important. I can't, this just was announced today. So I'm sorry, listeners, for tripping over what it actually is about. I just know some facts around it, but apparently Trump just invited Angela Merkel, who is the German chancellor, to something to do with a summit, probably for, the World Health Organization or something related to the pandemic. I just got a flash of news 5 minutes before we went on the air with the show. And, she declined.
Good.
You know what? She's busy leading her country.
Yep.
And Germany, with 83 million citizens, has had over 132,000 infections, but a very low rate of death per million, far lower than most other European countries. So you can't argue with that fact.
No.
And she's not even bothered. She's just like, you know what? Don't have time for your nonsense. I've got other things to focus on. And I feel like all of us female leaders, and listen, female leaders, are people who are staying home and taking care of their kids, and CEOs of their own company. I mean, it's not, you're a leader regardless. It doesn't matter, how many degrees or, whether you run a company or not. You're being a leader because you're focused, and you're just saying no to a whole bunch of nonsense that's going to take away from what is really important.
Yeah, I totally agree. What a time.
I know. It's interesting to talk about something like, leadership through a pandemic. And, it's something that, we just don't know. We're knowing more and more every day. And neither of us came to do this show to say, oh, look at how great we're doing.
Nope.
That is not how that's a more masculine response. And that seems to be, what a more masculine, not all, of course, but a more masculine response is about obtaining, is that gold star for, you did a good job. You've nailed it. And I don't feel like the females out there, like, they realize that is not, who cares?
Right. Yeah. I just from my own personal perspective, I feel like I've talked a lot about myself and how I feel this time, but
Good.
I feel that, I have to deal with today, and I have to deal with tomorrow, and I have to be the most effective that I possibly can be. I also have to keep the long range in view as well. And I had a Zoom meeting with my family, my two brothers and my parents, a couple weeks ago. And my brother, who was going to run the Boston Marathon, of course, cannot now. And we had all arranged a trip to go and see him in his victory. He really just started running about 3 years ago. And I was so proud of him and his achievement and his ability to qualify. And he said, I'm not going to do it. It had only been postponed and not canceled by that point. But he said that he didn't want to have to maintain that level of fitness for another 6 months. And I understand that, as a runner, it takes a lot to run that much. And he said, but Kat, maybe if your knee's feeling better a couple of years from now, we could, do another marathon together. We'd have enough time to take some rest and gear up to it again, and you could see how your knee's doing. And I had forgotten, Kristin, that I could make a plan 2 years from now.
Right here.
Oh my God. I was so focused on,
living in
my
the
son
moment.
going to be healthy tomorrow? And do I have enough soup? And,
I know. I am.
And you know what, Trump? I'm too busy to talk to you and tell you about my success because I'm busy managing my shit right now.
Exactly.
Sorry to swear, but come on.
It's okay. It's okay. I mean, the listeners have heard me say that and many worse things. So it's totally okay. It's completely appropriate. Agreed. I don't think I have started on the future stuff too much yet, but a few things here and there, and a lot of reflecting on when I've been in the ego wars with a male, mostly, sometimes female, but mostly men, the worst ones really, with men who just were telling me they own my voice, they own my ideas, they own, oh yeah, outright saying that and then putting it out on social media and all this stuff. And now I look at all that nonsense with such a fresh perspective because time has passed and there's other opportunities that I'm like, if you would have just grown up and worked on your stuff, because look at what's happening for me now, which I'll announce on other shows, but you could have been involved in all of this cool stuff and, you blew it, and you blew it because of your ego, and it's too bad. And really forgiving myself for getting momentarily caught up in the trauma of being attacked by a vicious person. A very narcissistic person. So all the times that we have been attacked, us females out there, and men have been too, but this is women who lead. All of the times that we have been attacked and had somebody say they own you and own your story and your voice and your this and your that and your whatever. Well, you know what? Nonsense. And the difference now is I know this at my core, which is why I don't need to participate in trying to prove it to somebody that doesn't care about anything except themselves.
Right.
I don't need to participate in nonsense. I just don't, because I know.
Exactly. And you know what? That is a direct tie-in to Glennon Doyle's new book, Untamed, that says, you know what? I've been listening to you and your critical voice. I've been listening to you and you telling me what I should and should not do. I've been listening to you tell me that I talk too much and that I'm too loud. Well, you know what? None of that is relevant. None of it is relevant because I'm here and I have a job to do.
Yeah. And you know what? I will say this, because I have some great men in my life. My God, I have some great men. I was speaking with my friend Adam Klugman, and he's been on the show many times, and he went through just being a friend, listening to some of the nonsense that I was going through, last year. And, he's going through his own hard time right now where I don't know where to go with direction in my life and this, that, and the other, which, who doesn't have those moments? So I'm not revealing a deep secret here. All of us stop and do that. And I told him, I have this wonderful opportunity to finally do the mental health film work that I've been wanting to do. And the opportunity is just, it's unbelievable. It's so wonderful. I can't wait to talk more about it. But 2 weeks before filming, I was standing in my bathroom and I was like, oh, my hair, I can't get a haircut. And when things open up, I don't know that I'm going to want to be one of the first people to go get a haircut. And
Right.
these are, obviously lame problems. Who cares? I can take scissors and cut it myself. But it was just sort of standing there, and I saw my dog clippers on the counter, and I grabbed them and I buzzed all my hair off G.I. Jane style.
You're so awesome.
2 weeks before filming.
Well, I'm not going to worry about that anymore.
Yeah. And I was telling it, and listeners, I'm sorry if I've already told this story, but what was cool was Adam's response. He goes, oh my God, you are so fucking free.
I love it.
And I thought, you know what? You're right. I am free from the vanity stuff. I don't walk around being concerned about my weight or my wrinkles or my hair, whatever. I am free of those things. And let me tell you how amazing it feels to be free of a lot of the stuff that has put on women as what we are supposed to value as more important than our lives.
Mm-hmm.
It is amazing to feel free of those, to be free of a lot of that stuff. So, in a good, in my final words on this particular segment, my God, I guess it's just keep on your path, women out there that are listening, and reach for that freedom, because it is amazing.
I agree. And you know what? I'm waiting for the day when a CNN article about female leadership doesn't have a disclaimer about the author.
Yes.
Because she's telling the truth.
That's right. Whew. On that note, Catherine Greer-Limpo, my friend and my co-host, thank you so much for coming and doing the show with me on a Saturday in May.
I thank you. I thank you for the opportunity, Kristin, every time.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
And listeners, thank you for tuning into our Women Who Lead series on Mental Health News Radio. Hi, listeners. I'll make it quick. These are some really cool places that give discounts and other cool things for listeners of Mental Health News Radio Network. If you want to get amazing help with healing from narcissistic abuse, go to healfromanarcissist.com. If you want CBD products that are the best of the best, I use them myself, go to proze.com and use the code mentalhealth20, mentalhealth20. If you want to get daily perk ups that help retrain your brain to think more positively, go to perkupdaily.com. And also,
just because this one's fun. Snarkycandles.com. I guarantee you'll love them. Snarky with a Y, SNARKY, candles.com. And don't forget, if you want to hear all the shows on the network about first responders, you can go to firstrespondermentalhealthnetwork.com, and all of our shows that focus on narcissistic abuse, narcissisticabusehealingnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, and back to the show.
Sometimes I'm passive aggressive, but never without good intentions. I heat up and act on my emotions.
Thanks so much for listening to Mental Health News Radio. Our podcast can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, and hundreds of other podcast apps, or you can visit our website at mentalhealthnewsradio.com. If you have a question or would like to be a guest, become a podcaster on our network, or join the amazing organizations that help keep us on the air, please email us at info@mhnrnetwork.com. Get ready for that special goodbye from our resident therapy dog, Miles, and a special thanks to Emily Sohn for letting us use her incredible song, Cordial, for our podcast music. Listen to the full song on SoundCloud at emily.sonne.
Don't be surprised when I don't hate on you. After all, we promised we'd be cordial. Sometimes in you I can fight it, but I'm opposing.
Good boy.